And sometimes they're going to be non-calculator, and sometimes they're going to be calculator. And sometimes they're going to require you to do something algebraic, and sometimes they'll let you guess and check. A is one that on the exam, they most likely would have the word algebraic. You would have to solve it with algebra. Okay? By the way, there's a very easy way to solve this one without algebra. If 2 is the number of spaces, and n is the number you start with, can you mental math figure out what number and then one less would make 56? Yes. 8 and 7. So you unalgebraically could quite easily figure out that n is 8. It's nice to be able to check that, but you would lose all your marks on this question if it said algebraic. Algebraically, what they want you to do is they want you to look on your formula sheet and say, this is the formula for NPR. So to start off with, NP2 would be n factorial over n minus 2 factorial equal to 56. You can simplify factorials if you're dividing them. Just the same way that we did 8 factorial over 5 factorial. What was the strategy? You have to figure out which one's bigger, and then you use the definition, 8 is bigger than 5. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Figure out which one's bigger, and then start expanding the bigger one by going one less until you get to the one that's on the bottom, because then it would cancel out. Now, which is bigger, n or n minus 2?
Wait, sorry, n.
N, okay, cool. All right. If you don't know, pick a number for n. Which is bigger? It's 7. This would be 7. This 7 minus 2 is 5. Okay, 7 is bigger. So, we start expanding the bigger one. Well, that would be n, and then you multiply by 1 less. What's 1 less than n? N minus 1. And then you multiply by 1 less. What's 1 less than n minus 1? N minus 2. And when you get to n minus 2, you're like, hey, that's the one that I have on the bottom. Add a factorial saying, you should keep on going, but I'm going to stop here because they're going to cancel out. And I get this, which is a quadratic equation. And you see that n times n minus 1 would give you n squared minus n. If I move the 56 over, I can make it equal to 0, which would allow me to factor n and n would be minus 8 and plus 7. So we actually get two answers for n. N could be 8 and n could be negative 7. But as I mentioned earlier, if you look at the question, you can't have a negative factorial, so we would have to put an x through this one. And the only answer is n equals 8, which we figured out earlier with a shortcut. But most of the time, you're going to be required to solve them algebraically. But sometimes they'll just say, hey, you know what, actually what's better if we go to B? All right, B here, 5PR equals, oops, what was the 5PR equals 20. This would be an example of one where they wouldn't get you to do it algebraically. If they didn't get you to do it algebraically, this is how I would go about doing it. I would say, I know this is your number of spaces. I know it has to equal 20. Is one space enough if I start with 5? No. 5 does not equal 20. If I add a second space, does it work? Yes. So there's 2 spaces, and R is equal to 2. And for this one, you only have to circle.